well that were either killed, wounded, or captured. So it was a disaster. So as Braddock and the British regulars marched through the wilderness towards Fort Duquesne, they are ambushed by the French just short of their arrival. Braddock and more than half of his officers were killed. In addition to that, half of the British soldiers were either killed, wounded, or captured. The only reason they didn't get wiped out to a man is because Washington and his militia fought back against the French using Indian warfare, which is on your sheet. So the only reason that Braddock didn't lose all of his officers and all of his men was because of George Washington and the Virginia militia, who fought back against the French, and they used what was called Indian warfare. Anybody know what that is? Firing from behind rocks and trees and not marching in columns. Okay, so they fought like frontiersmen, so to speak. And only because of the efforts of Washington and the Virginia militia using Indian warfare did Braddock not lose all of his officers and all of his men. That wasn't all the bad news that happened for the British. Matters worsened. I'll give you two examples of how matters even got worse for the British in the early part of the French and Indian War. Britain was trying to capture French forts Niagara and Crown Point, which are on your map. Failed in both of those attempts. So not only did they get wiped out, half their troops wiped out on the march to Fort Duquesne trying to take that fort, they also lost in their efforts to take two other French forts, Niagara and Crown Point, failures. And to make matters even worse, the French captured two of Britain's forts, Fort Oswego and Fort William Henry. So this is an early British disaster. You've got General Braddock and his troops wiped out, halfway wiped out, killed, officers killed, he's killed, half his officers. He loses half of his soldiers to either were killed, wounded, or captured. So their advance upon Fort Duquesne is a disaster. They advance against French forts Niagara and Crown Point, fail in both those endeavors as well. And while they're doing that, the French attacks and captures two British forts, Fort Oswego and Fort William Henry. So things are looking pretty bad for the old British side here in the French-Indian War. We're just getting crushed. And a lot of it's because they failed to unite a little bit, and then Franklin's plan might have made a difference. You just have to think about that. Okay, so they need somebody to come in and provide some leadership, or we're gonna end up speaking French in this class today rather than English. And so the British then, our next subtopic, find some success under William Pitt. Success under William Pitt. Somebody's got to come to the rescue, because we're in bad shape. If it wasn't for William Pitt, we might be talking about the French in a different manner today. Well, in the fall of 1756, William Pitt became the leader of the British government. Did he become the king? No, he becomes the head of what? What's the British government called? Parliament. Okay? So, in 1756, William Pitt becomes the leader of the British government, Parliament, and he is determined that he's going to win a complete victory for Britain in this French-Indian War. So fortunately for Great Britain, in 1756, William Pitt becomes the leader of the British government, the Parliament, and he is bound and determined he's going to win a complete victory for Great Britain. Now, if I'm taking over a football team and they have just gotten their butts handed to them, they're horrible, haven't won a game in 3 years, what am I going to have to do as a new head coach? I'm going to have to do what? Make some changes. And that's what William Pitt did. He came in and made some crucial changes, and I'm going to tell you what those changes are. So if you come into a bad school, if you come into a bad business, if you come into a bad basketball team, and you're the new leader of that team, the new coach, you've got to make some changes. So with this outstanding leadership, William Pitt made some changes. And these changes rallied the British Empire, and we're going to start to have, we're going to start to have some success against the French and win this thing. Here are 5 things he did. 5 things that Pitt did to change the tide, so to speak, and put the British Empire in a rally. Okay? If you are a football coach, I'll just tell you a story here. 1988, I went back to my alma mater of Forsyth, Montana, and took over a basketball team that was 0-18 the year before. And the year before that, they won 6 games. They were 6-36 the 2 years before I got there. Okay? And I had to make some changes. And I had, believe it or not, 9 seniors returning off an 0-18 team. 9 seniors. Okay? So, I tried to think of how I was going to do this gently, because this is in the old days when things were a little bit different. So I brought those 9 seniors in, and I only had one of them that I thought was a player after watching film, and maybe another one that would be worth keeping. Okay? So I brought the kids in, I tried to be as gentle as I could, and I said, fellas, here's the deal. I got 9 returning seniors on an 0-18 basketball team. I know we can go 0-18 without you. We went 0-18 with you last year, right? As juniors, so I know we can't do any worse. So here's the deal. I'm going to make some changes, and it would be my preference if you 7 just went out for wrestling. Basically, this is what I said. Because they were basketball players. You see what I'm saying? So what did William Pitt have to do? He's got people, he's got returning leaders, returning military leaders, right? Military officers. So what does he do? Are they competent leaders if they're getting their butts kicked in this war? They're incompetent. So he replaced all incompetent leaders with competent leaders. Now that's a bad example of what I was talking about, but what I did is I replaced those 7 seniors that were incompetent basketball players. They were great kids, but they couldn't play a lick of basketball. And I replaced them with kids I thought were able players. If you're going to lose, if you're going to build a program, you're best to lose with sophomores and seniors, are you not, when you think about it? Now this is a little different, things have changed. But the point being is you got to make changes that are hard. And that's what Pitt did. He fired all these incompetent leaders. Did he dislike all the guys he fired, probably? No, but he knew they couldn't get the job done. He probably didn't like some of them, but he fired them because they were incompetent. So the first thing Pitt did is he fired all the incompetent leaders and replaced them with who he believed to be able leaders. Okay. Now, let's say in this basketball team that my best player is a sophomore. And we're going to pick captains, which I never did because it just was a pain in the butt. But anyway, a lot of people do that. Would I pick a sophomore to be the captain even though he's my best player if I want to be a winner? Sure he would. He's your best player, right? So just because he's a sophomore doesn't mean he shouldn't be the best player. So my point is, these colonial officers that were in America were not considered as good or equal rank as those that were serving in England. So another thing Pitt did is he gave colonial officers, those fighting in the colonies, rank equal to those that fought in the King's Army in England. In other words, he gave that captainship to a colonial officer that maybe he shouldn't have gotten because you have to be in the Royal Army to be, to get that captain tag. Okay? So what he did is he gave colonial officers rank that was equal to those that served in the King's Army. So if you were a major in the colonial army, you were equal to a major in the King's Royal Army, which wasn't the case prior to that, and that caused some dissension. Okay? So he fixed that. He strengthened the British Navy because what had the French done? Got equal. And he didn't want to be equal. Equal was average sucks. I mean, he didn't want to be equal. He wanted to be better. So he strengthened the British Navy. He didn't want them equal with France. They had been the most powerful navy in the world. We're not going to be even with anybody. He moved additional English troops to where? From England to America. Yep, he moved more troops to America. Didn't have enough troops there, so he moved more. Now then you have to decide whether you want to be aggressive or not. Okay? We fought in the Vietnam War for a long time, and America got kind of crazy, and we had protests, and finally Richard Nixon made the rule when he took over the presidency late in the Vietnam War that we would only fight on the defensive. What does that mean? We'd only engage our enemy when we were on the defensive, when they were attacking us. Pitt had just the opposite. We're never going to be on the defensive. We will take the offensive every time. We're not defending anything, we're taking. So he got very aggressive. So the 5 things William Pitt did, 1 is he fired all incompetent leaders and replaced them with able leaders. 2, he gave colonial officers rank equal to those who served in the King's Army in England. 3, he strengthened the British Navy. 4, he moved additional English troops to America. And 5, he took the offensive everywhere he went on this battle. We were going to be on the offensive. We were not fighting behind. Okay? Now, Monday we'll tell you about British victories because he's going to turn the table. He's going to turn that 0-18 team into a state champion. Just like that with the changes. Okay? Alright, perfect. I'm sorry I'm going to miss you guys tomorrow. You will not be in here, but